Hi, my name is Byun. I'm a product manager at Schema Education.
My name is Volodymyr Chekyrta. I'm working at Raccoon. I'm a software engineer. I'm responsible for mobile applications.
And today we're going to be talking about the mobile app, where it is today and where we hope to bring it in the future.
Again, welcome to our session on edX Mobile, now and next. Let me introduce our amazing team. Marco Morales and Byun from Schema Education, who's constantly pushing edX product and UI UX forward. And me, Volodymyr from Raccoon Gang, responsible for technical part and mobile project maintenance. Today our talk is going to unfold in 3 parts. We'll start with what's new in tick release. It's mostly improvements for engineers, so think about this as a quick technical pulse check so everyone knows where the foundation now stands. Then we'll discuss experience changes in Olmo. We'll cover the overall course experience, the Apple level dates feature, and a set of smaller UI UX enhancements. We'll keep these sections brief, as much what we will share today we shared in March. We have a recording of this virtual meetup in case you want to dive in. And finally, we'll focus on our very good goals: driving broader mobile adoption, lowering cost of the mobile development, and differentiating our product on mobile. This is where we'll spend the most of our time today. But first, let's start with a year recap on what we've been working on over the past year. Thank you. Okay, if there are any technical issue, please tell me. And yeah, actually, we have a dedicated time for question and answers. So prepare your pen and papers, prepare your questions. We will discuss all of that in the end. And as I mentioned earlier, we already given more detailed presentation on the updates in March, which you can find at this link. So let's dive into. Go back. I'm gonna show it one more time at the end, so if someone misses it, that's fine. Closer? Okay, thank you. Are you ready to go? Fine. So let's dive into tick and discuss developer updates, improvements for us, and some changes. And the first significant change that we introduced was edX Mobile plugin architecture. Solution that allows us to separate some features into plugins to develop and maintain them separately without need to change main app code base. This solution combined the need for customization with the stability and simplicity of the core system. As a result, the core application is compact and maintainable, extending functionality is fast, and upgrading to new versions of edX is a much smoother process. If you're interested in deeper technical details, I highly recommend reading the original document describing the idea behind the edX Mobile plugin architecture and the implementation options considered. You can find it by scanning this QR code or following this link. I'm going to give you 5 extra seconds. Okay. Another big release also happened this year. Apple introduced a new version of their programming language, Swift 6, with some breaking changes such as structured concurrency. And this release happened in parallel with our plugin system development. So we just couldn't ignore that and decided to migrate. And I can say that this transition wasn't easy. We modified almost every file in the project, but it helped us a lot to find and remove a lot of weak points that came from race conditions. So for our end users, iOS application is much more stable now. For developers, async await code is more predictable and safe by design. And the last but not least an important change for developers, workflow improvements, the change we had long needed. We noticed that developers and reviewers spend a lot of time on working with pull requests. That is basically fine, that's how we guarantee quality. But we realized that the huge part of this time was just for checking and addressing code style issues. So we decided to streamline this process and basically added static analyzers to all our mobile repositories. So now when you submit your pull request to the upstream, GitHub pipeline will launch static analyzers to check whether your code matches project code style and even identify potential bugs. So as a developer, now you can get initial feedback faster and work on it. And as a reviewer, you can focus on a more important things such as understanding intention of your pull request, reviewing changes to the system, and basically testing your code. What I've got to mention here on the slide, you can see, I hope you see how it looks. The system basically sent informative messages to your pull request page with comments, what's went wrong, so there is no way someone missed it. And this is what we had for developers in Tick release. And now let's check what we have in Ulmo release, what we have currently in development, and what learners can expect to see in Ulmo. And the first such project is course content views. The goal of the content views project was to redesign course experience to allow learners to easily access what they care about, and to additionally improve the app to better serve our learners. Here on the slide, you can see the original course home, which had just a course outline and the videos page, which was only the alternate way of viewing the content. So we went from this to this. And the first thing, it's a home tab for content tab. This is where we moved course home with some improvements. As you can see, this all submod is designed for learners who want to approach the course in the traditional sequential way. Then we have the video tab. This is for students who want to watch videos on the go. And along with it, we have a new video players for students to advance through all course videos. And finally, the assignments view for students who want to keep on the top of their deadlines. By moving the course outline to these new content views, we were able to open up Course Home to serve as a hub for learners. Let's see. On the Course Home, we have a carousel for students to see what's next in their course sequentially, for videos, for assignments, and to track their grade progress. In the future, we hope to continue building on this Course Home to better serve our learners. The next long-needed project, Course Progress View. The goal of the Visual Course Progress project was to translate the LMS web progress page for mobile. Beyond that, though, we wanted to start introducing more progress visuals to allow learners to better grasp where they are in the course. We hope to keep building on these improvements in the future as we explore other ways of engaging and motivating learners. The next project introduces the new experience to the app level control. The app level date screen displays upcoming assignments across all enrolled courses on the platform. So learners have a better understanding and control over their deadlines. With a single click, learners can easily access the associated content or move their deadlines if they're running late on assignment. And along with feature designed above, we're also working on the little things to improve the existing experience. For instance, we squashed several bugs across profile, course, and app levels. We're working on improving RTL support and addressing accessibility issues. As well, we're constantly working to improve dark theme support across different levels of the application. As well, we finally addressed the issue that didn't allow learners to synchronize their course dates with their calendar when the course start date was in the future. Also, we're working to improve discussions experience for learners between web and mobile. So learners on mobile will be able to see original posts from web with all their HTML styles and formatting without losing performance. And some improvements to app upgrade mechanism and messages so learners can stay informed about latest version of the application and updates. And again, the link to the Mark's presentation where we covered in details new app level experience, app level dates, plugin architecture, and more what we're gonna mention in the next minutes. Okay, thank you everyone, and let's move to Verawood goals.
Thanks, Lumen. My name's Eddie. I'm a product manager at Schema. I'm going to talk to you about what we're thinking ahead for the app and where we plan to bring it. And a big part of that is hopefully getting all of you involved in the process. So up here right now is the themes that we've been talking about for the past 2 years every time we talk about mobile. And actually, when we talk about the themes, they've always been ordered in what we thought was the most important to, not least important, but in some kind of hierarchy here. But as we reflected on the state of the mobile app and where we are right now versus where we wanted to be, we realized that actually we had it wrong. We flipped it, and it really should have been like this. We should have been focusing on adoption, involving the community. And so that's what we want to do from now moving forward for the rest of this presentation. But before we dive in, I wanted to look at 2 numbers that I thought were really salient for me. The first is from UNICEF, which is 66% of the world's population under 25 does not have internet access at home. And then correspondingly, 70 to 90% of the world's population in low to mid-income houses have at least one smartphone. So if you look at these 2 numbers together, really, I think proves the point that if you care about access and impact, you have to care about mobile. So that's why we're really passionate about what we're doing here, and that's why we want to bring you into the process. So as we talk about adoption, we wanted to start it off by talking about the goal that we have for the next year, which is, at this point in time, we think about 5% of instances have mobile enabled. And in the next year, we want to push that to 50%. So it's a huge jump, but I think by kind of aiming maybe higher than what is possible, we'll think boldly. And part of that process was really thinking about what will drive adoption, which led us to, part of that was understanding why adoption is so important to moving the app forward. The first is obvious. If we're not meeting our learners, then we can't impact them. So adoption is important just to get it into their hands. But correspondingly, as more people use the app, it means more of you are involved in the community in mobile. So that means affecting the mobile design, the roadmap, what we're prioritizing. So I think those 2 things kind of work in a cycle. As we get more adoption, there's more people involved in the process. As more people involved, hopefully the product gets better and better to continually increase the adoption. So when we thought about what it would take to get there, we started to reach out to providers and different organizations to see what is holding you back or your clients back from adopting the mobile app. And as part of that, 2 themes started to emerge below that. One is that it's just too expensive. Getting mobile app running and maintaining it is too expensive. And 2, the value proposition just isn't there yet. How is the mobile app something more than just a mobile version of the web LMS? So these are the 3 kind of areas that we want to think about for the rest of our talk today. And to start it off, I want you to take out your phone again. And selfishly, this is my goal for this week, which is to get your contact information. Because what we're realizing is that these conferences are really, really great opportunities to meet people and understand your context and your students' context and your clients' context. But these conversations end up being a spike, and the rest of the year we lose contact. So I hope that through this presentation, we kind of pull you into the process more and get you excited to basically get involved and help us out here. And when we look at the organizations that are currently really involved in mobile, there's a bunch of them, but they're all providers. So we have no educators, no organizations that are consistent members of the working group meetings. So we would love to add your organization, if you're a provider that's not up there, add you up there. And then next year, hopefully this will look different. So on the first theme, which is driving adoption through expanded input, we've been working on 3 kind of areas for the next year. The first is kind of restructuring how we're approaching working group meetings. So in the next year, what we plan on doing is, based on some of the notes, hopefully you send through the survey, we'll find areas of interest for the community, and we'll have those areas of interest drive the working group meetings. So if it's not something you care about, you don't have to show up, but they'll be planned in advance so you're able to either provide input asynchronously or hopefully join us and impact it that way. Another thing that we're working on is reorganizing the GitHub to provide more visibility for everyone that wants to get involved. And that means beyond just developers too. We want to have lanes for product people, for design people, and for educators to know exactly where they need to go to understand what is in the process, where they could provide their input and how they could get involved there as well. And then quarterly surveys, which is something we kicked off. And to this point, we've had 2 responses, one of which was Marco. So we're hoping in the future that also improves. And I will say in all these 3 areas, we're going to talk about kind of ideas we have to make it better, to drive adoption. But part of what we need your input on is also affecting how we're thinking about these 3 areas. So when we talk about here lowering the native mobile cost, these are just things that we identified as potential techniques of doing that. But we imagine you have insights based on your context too. And again, this is why we want to drive some dialogue between everybody. So the first area that we've been really passionate about, that Zeit Labs actually has started getting to work on, is what we're calling learning academies, multi-tenancy learning site selection. It's having one app per provider at the outset, to have multiple organizations within that one app, so it's easier to maintain. You don't have to deploy multiple apps for each institution, reducing the cost in that way. There's a lot of work in the future that we hope will build on that to hopefully make adopting the mobile app low to no cost. Other improvements are in including more mobile-related aspects to tutor, maybe having a public sandbox so people could test out the mobile app and see what's available at any given time. And then there's also just general improvements for rapid theming, white labeling, and things that might matter in that world as well. And then the third category, differentiating the mobile app. The first category of things that we're looking at are really beyond cross-device authoring previews. It's educator tools. So how can we allow educators who understand how to teach their students to design their courses to be fit for the mobile format and really take advantage of that? So this is just one example of something that might be useful in that world. We also have ideas in audio play modes, so you can listen while you're on the go, or perhaps in CarPlay, so other contexts where you could learn that mobile support. And then there are other things like push notifications for mobile that are important. It's a advantage that mobile has, I think, over desktop for sure. And to kind of close it out, we have kind of a case study on offline mode, which we know is important to a lot of people. At this current state, we're at what I would call V1.5, which is an improvement to what we have. We have now, your students could submit problems on offline, and then they could be synced once they get back into connectivity. There's progress syncing. And then bulk tools is just a new page that allows you to download the entire course. But this isn't available yet. And currently we're not sure when it will be available because there's some really difficult architecture decisions and challenges, particularly with download sizes, videos, and making the app future safe for offline mode. So we just need an investment, whether that's in time, money. There's a lot of developers here, I'm sure, that can help review the architecture and help us in that manner. So on that note, I'm going to bring it back to the survey. If you have thoughts that you want to share with us or just want to send your contact info, that would be meet my goal for the conference week, or you cannot send it and I'd understand too. With that, we've got some time for questions if anybody has any. And also we're here to chat. I think the one-on-one conversations are just as effective. So if you want to talk to us on the side, we would love that. So thank you.
Thank you. Those are really nice updates, both in the already developed things and in the vision. Thanks for that. I just wanted to ask what happened to the conversation, if that progress or not. I probably missed it, about having a mobile app that would be able to connect with multiple instances that have like a selector on top, so that we could maybe overcome some of the arrears of cost and maintenance.
So yeah, that's what we're calling the Learning Academies feature. So that is work that on the product and design side, we've had sort of static reference, like this is what we think needs to happen. Zeit Labs a couple months back was like, well, we need to pick this up. So they started development and they've shared with the mobile working group that they're kind of aligning what they're doing with that product and design direction. So right now, some fraction of that is being built. So we have a rough size of development that's necessary to build the entire capability, because at its initial stage, you want the ability to include a bunch of metadata from, let's say, 10 different learning sites in the mobile app build code. And then that way you open the app and you can load it and select your learning site. And ideally, the entire theme, even the app icon would change. So you actually can really let someone make it feel like it's their learning site. But that means that every single time you update icons or add new sites, you need a new version of the mobile app. So there's more work that's needed in order to get a server that you could request most of that metadata from, and take things like the app icon and the barest, smallest amount of things that you would need to have to be bundled into the build. So ideally, this will mean a provider could have one app that they maintain to give a really low cost or no cost option to their hosting clients and make that actually realistic, right? Instead of being the case that you have to double the amount of spend you're doing to have a custom build of a platform that's maintained, because it takes time to submit to the Play Store, the App Store, all that. So like I said, that feature is in development, but it's not fully going to be ready for providers, but we're hopeful that we can get that entire capability over the finish line, and that's where we need other providers' input and help.
All right, I'll speak on behalf of the educator perspective, and this may have been discussed in all of your work you did prior, and I use the edX app, or have. And so what about the experience when on a web page, people design something where there's 4 or 5 blocks, problem, video, image, and then in the app, those are all separated. But the educators say in the picture above, you see this, but it's different pages. What are you thinking about? Does the newer version fix that? There's also the issue of what happens when there's an LTI on the page. Do you just get the link to go to the website? And so that happens like every 3 or 4 pages in an MIT course. So thinking about those things, are they being addressed or thought about now in the newer versions?
Good question. So on the sequence navigation side of things, we, Raccoon Gang has worked on a proof of concept to get the shift away from component by component navigation to unit level navigation, which was a technical barrier and really difficult in prior versions of Swift and Kotlin and other stuff. So it is more realistic now. It's technically just a proof of concept. There are designs and whatnot for sequence-based navigation, so you load the full page all at once. That also addresses a bunch of like resume course issues and gaps, depending on where you are in the course. Learners feeling confused at times there. So that should be something that hopefully we can get to in the next year, but it is sort of a matter of understanding whether that's the blocker that would make it or break it for someone to move into the native mobile experience. Right now, we have a sense of the product and design, but it's not scheduled for development right now fully. On the LTI and like block support, there's a bunch of there's a long tail of blocks to support. A number of them have been added this year, and I think you can speak to that.
Yeah, just for LTI. LTI block is supported by default in mobile applications. The only issue that you can face with it, like your content of LTI block should be adapted for mobile, should be resizable, and so on. So that's the main challenge, and you need to check it before it.
And then finally, we have talked about when Eddie mentioned the educator tools, in addition to things like the preview, so you can see what's going on, we've talked about whether we should be looking at allowing course teams that have these blocks to opt to have a mobile alternative. But that is a costly, time-intensive sort of thing, right? Right now, you see like, hey, this should be done on the web. So that's a choice that so far no one has driven necessarily, but we could imagine that being a realistic thing that people need or want to do. It just depends on whether you have courses that you leverage that or have that need enough to justify it.
Thank you. Trying to connect this intention of elevating the adoption of the app with the exercise we do with the global footprint thing. Can you see a way of starting from the URL OpenX domain that we currently have for 2,000 plus sites, figure out whether or not they have the API endpoint or the, I don't know, the mobile APIs in place, or even a signal of whether or not they're having the app?
Yeah, I think that's another place where expanded input would really help us. Right now, the way that we find mobile apps is searching through the Play Store or the Apple Store, trying to identify that way, searching the web for apps associated to edX instances. So
Right. You mentioned 5%, but I don't know if it was like an example. That would mean to something like having found 100 of them or something? Or what's the number that you have found when searching in the app stores?
That's a good question. So a lot of the ones that you can find on the Play Store or the App Store then have a corresponding, is this still active or was this a test build app? But there's somewhere between like 12 and 20 of these apps that either started as OpenEdX code and have drifted to something else or are OpenEdX. And some of those just, as you're probably familiar with looking at it on the web, it's like half the time you're like, I don't know, I think it is. Some of them are heavily modified, a lot of them are not, and so that's what gives us clues into when there's probably better ways of doing this on GitHub and elsewhere. Basically, like the 5% is sort of generous. It's probably very likely well under the 5%, but for us, the important thing is like the big 10x jump on a relative basis. That's most important. Yeah.
Achievement unlocked. I had one quick question and maybe one longer one. The quick one was just, I didn't quite follow the offline access. So does it already have offline problem submission, or is that something that's coming?
It is coming. So what is in the app right now is video downloads, and that's been true for a while.
Yeah.
What is on a like test branch build is text block and problem block download, so that you would be able to see much closer to the full course when you're offline. For those problem blocks, and when I say problem blocks, obviously there's lots of Kappa problems. There's not all problem types, but you can, like multiple choice, text, numeric, you can submit offline and it will store the answer. And then once you reconnect online, it will resubmit your answers and then give you feedback. So that was built on a V1 architecture for how to cache and store all that Volodymyr can answer more details of than I can. But
Yeah, just as Marco mentioned, the code is open. You can go to GitHub, go to the search bar and type FC funded contribution 0047 and ADR architectural decision record and pull request. They're open. There is a endless discussion of these, and as it was mentioned before, it requires some architectural changes and improvements, but it's actually open to try.
And sorry, I have the other question is, in your experience, at least so far, what sort of type of team is necessary to support a mobile app, both in terms of customizing, maintaining, and supporting?
I'll do a bit of this and then I'm handing it back again. But this is one of the biggest barriers, right? Like what has driven the cost for a lot of cases is a provider or people that are hosting it themselves have to have expertise in mobile to do the building and packaging and sending and submitting to the app in the App Store and Play Store. If you're doing any kind of customizations, there's Swift and Kotlin experience that often isn't in development teams. So it can be a costly thing. I think there are providers that have ways of sort of getting people off the ground. So I'm just going to hand this up.
Yeah, there is a set of documentation like the default README and the repository, how you can configure and build your own application, where the file's located, what you want to change to, white label your application, and so on. We have this item on our backlog. We still continue on documentation to improve it and make it more clear for everyone how to build it. Basically, yeah, it still requires some amount of knowledge for mobile developer, but we got a few pull requests from not mobile persons from community, so it's kind of doable.
Ready? Okay.
We have two community members left. You mentioned the offline problem types. What is the idea behind it that then if somebody submits an assignment and they are still offline and they get online and the due date's passed, what happens then?
Yes, so a number of those things we have accounted for in the sense that we can begin to tell you when you've not synced the experience beyond a certain number of days and whatnot, sort of up the urgency of, hey, getting back online to sync these pending things will be helpful. But that is where a lot of the complexity will wind up being. So even the work that we've prepped on the product and design side, we think gets a big chunk forward on the syncing and whatnot. But there's still a bunch of edge cases that we anticipate that once there's enough people using, we will identify other things that we haven't caught or designed for or accounted for already. Yeah, so there's more work to be done for sure. I think it's a little bit disingenuous to say that the full offline mode is like V1 to V2 and then we'll be done. Sure. So the call out here was around the difference between formative and summative assessment. So definitely relying on this syncing mechanism for high stakes exams or exams is definitely a much higher bar than getting people to still be able to complete a lot more of the experience on the go, still feel like they're getting the full course experience. So in particular, for those kinds of formative problems, that's going to be a much easier, lower risk thing to get. But basically, there's an area of the experience that we're adding that will give learners visibility into what percentage of the course they have that's visible to them, what percentage is downloadable, and what percentage will be interactive. So hopefully that gives that number really high up, even if you wind up deciding that not all the things are fully friendly for offline syncing and submission.
Going once.
Would you characterize the goal, the end game, sort of more as anything you can author in Open edX in Studio will work on mobile just as is, or that we would make best efforts in that space, but also expect that there's some authoring adaptations that support a robust mobile version of the course?
It's a good question. I would say we've already made a lot of strides towards making many more X blocks mobile friendly, but without the educator visibility into, even within the blocks that are mobile friendly, you can get yourself into a situation where things are still difficult on mobile, right? For a block that is like, even in LTI cases or other things. For example, if you have an HTML block that embeds an iframe or has an external CSS file that, it's referenced, those are some of the things that you might be able to download the HTML, but we won't fully be able to render it exactly. So there's a really long tail and lots of different ways that you can make something not fully mobile friendly. So there's a lot we can do for educator visibility, for giving you an understanding of when some mobile friendly blocks aren't all the way that. But even at the end of that, we talked briefly about the choice of, should you provide an alternative, which is the web view is what you embed. And you warn people, but you still let them access it. Or you open up another browser, or you provide a different block so that you can complete it on mobile. And the challenge is separate from the mobile app costs we talked about in terms of getting an app up and running. There's a whole other authoring cost and level of effort. If supporting mobile for educators means doubling the amount of course time or the concern, that's not going to work either. So we probably have to sort of do a cost-aware mitigation more than anything for now.
I also think a lot of that is context dependent, where if you're in a place where you need the full course to be offline, then you need some level of parity with the web version. But if you're in a context where the mobile app is going to be used as a support tool, then we could start looking at other ways of pushing the mobile away from parity and more towards taking advantage of that use case. But
We do have time for a couple more questions, if there are any more.
And the last thing, maybe don't be afraid to download the application and try to customize it. We have a lot of AI tools that actually can assist you now. So try it and provide your feedback to our working group. And please join our working group meetings if you have any ideas, feedbacks, and so on. Thank you, everyone.